Hey, oh gosh, I started to talk about my hobbies, and one hobbies I acquired when I came to the U.S. is bird watching, and I don't know how that started. I think one summer, I think first year, second year or so, I think my friend took me to the um, his cabin in Idaho. I was living in Seattle, Washington at the time. And so we went to Idaho cabin, and I brought my binocular with me, and uh, I got a book, I think the Bird of the U.S., you know, book, but I don't know where that particular book is. And I started to do, and I was mesmerized at how easy to find the species that I otherwise I never see through binoculars. And in Idaho, crossbill, like a bill, bill crossing like this. I vividly remember I saw that, and flicker. I saw that at that time. So ever since then, I became I think I became a bona fide bird watcher. And everywhere I go, I take my binoculars, and I spend whole day to walk around the field and so forth, to try to identify the birds in the U.S. mainly. And in the beginning, that was the western birds, and I moved to the Midwest. Then I start to see like a cardinals and the blue jays, which is different from the Stellar's jay in the east. And so I felt like almost so most of the colorful varieties in the U.S. Memorable one is that when I went to Everglades, Florida, I saw the painted bunting. Painted bunting is the small birds. The bunting is the small birds, like a sparrow size, but it's very colorful, like green, red, blue, yellow together. Very very colorful birds. And when I looked in the bird book, I have to see that. So luckily, when I was walking around the Everglades National Park, not in the wild, but I think this particular sanctuary, I think there's this small building where you can stop by and so forth. There's a bird feeder there, and there's a painted bunting and a bird feeder. God, that was kind of fantastic. The other memorable events is that I used to live in the Detroit, Michigan suburbs, and one of the most popular outing from there is to go to Point Peary. Point Peary is in a Canadian side from the border from Detroit, and you go to the Canadian side, and then you see this Point Peary, which is sticking out. I think that Lake Ontario or Lake Michigan. I don't remember which one that is. Sticking out like a peninsula type of thing. And so the birds migrate in the spring to north, and they cross this lake, and they all got tired, and then perched to this very small, narrow space of Point Peary in a certain time of the year, in the springtime. And so I went there one springtime, and so like literally, for the first time, hundreds of warblers, different warblers. Warblers are like a tiny, tiny bird, but sometimes very beautiful colors, and the yellow colors, and all those different patterns of the body, and sometimes among those warblers, a little bit different species also comes in there. And so that was fascinating trip. And the other events that memorable is in the Colorado. I have been always looking for the bluebird, like bluebirds of happiness, right? Bluebirds of happiness. I was looking for it, and I have seen bluebirds the eastern bluebird. I saw that it's a beautiful bird, but I think it's a blue and a little bit the brown mixed together, and but western bluebirds also I saw that too, and then this beautiful cerulean blue mountain bluebirds, which I hadn't seen at the time at all. And I was walking, I think at the Rocky Mountain National Park, and then in this Albiora fall area, where the tourists are all over the place, the particular fall, and I saw like 20 or 30 of them, chattering and all over the place. And it's a beautiful blue, completely blue, but it's a cerulean blue, and that was one of the most memorable events. And so, over the years, I got interested in bird watching, and I became interested. During that time, I did a few opportunities to go outside the U.S. and going back to Japan, and of course, when I was in Japan before coming to U.S., I never interested in bird watching, and this coming home and to Japan, and I have to do a bird watching. So I took my binoculars and I kind of did the research in Japanese bird. Japanese bird. You are growing up in Japan. You heard lots of names, very Japanese names like Ikaru and Mejiro and so forth. And those names you are familiar with. Hayabusa, for example. And it's bring back but this old Japanese fairy tales, the Japanese culture, Japanese, the nature, whatever, and many people over the, like 2,000 years, I would say, people in Japan, I think, traditionally enjoy the nature, right? So in the olden days, they already make a lot of poem and the songs and stuff about this, different birds and so forth. So those things are very literary names for me, and but I never seen those birds. I wasn't a bird watcher at the time. So going back, and I started to do bird watching, and I was amazed. Oh, before going back, I stopped by Hawaii first, and spent the Maui for a few days, and then went to Japan after that. And in Hawaii, and many people, emigrated to Hawaii a long time ago. So Hawaiian population is like more than 50% Japanese descent, right? Okay. Well, anyway, so they brought the bird named Mejiro. Mejiro is the one that I remember when I was in Japan. When I was a kid, I grew up in a very small town in Kyushu. Very rustic environments there, but beautiful nature. And kids at the time want to go out to the mountains or woods and to capture this particular small bird called Mejiro. Mejiro is like around the eyes, it's a white, like a white eye, oriental white eye, and that's probably American English common name for Mejiro. But Mejiro, the kids go out and capture those Mejiro birds by this stick, the wood stick, and in the wood stick has this tremendously sticky material coated, and so they put this sticky wood stick, right? Okay, in the branches here and there, and then so you go home and you come back in the morning, and here enough the Mejiro was trapped in this particular stick because he perches in this particular branches, and then the birds cannot fly away because it's very sticky materials coated on there. So they capture the Mejiro and they put it in a cage, and they sell to the people who love Mejiro to buy in a cage at home. Mejiro is, I think, very popular traditionally in that small village also. Very popular birds to have it in a cage. I don't know why that started, because Mejiro is kind of a common bird, and they loved it. Traditionally, they loved this beauty of this particular small bird. It's a beautiful bird. It's green, mostly green color, but white is distinctly white eye, wing, and oriental white eye, and that's what they said, and it's a distinct bird. So I saw a couple of times when in a cage, right? But when I went to Hawaii and Maui, I think, or Hawaii, the Oahu area, I was looking, and then there's all over the place this Mejiro flying by, and I realized that Japanese immigrant from Japan to Hawaii brought these birds with them because this is pets for them, and then they escaped and they become established in this Hawaiian islands, and that was the most astonishing thing that I experienced. And of course, Hawaii has a lot of different type of birds too, like a cardinal. Cardinal in the eastern United States is completely red, but the Hawaiian cardinal is like a head is like a whitish, grayish color, and some part of the body is whitish, but other part is red, and it's the same kind of a shape of the cardinals in the eastern cardinal, but it's different colors. So that's a Hawaiian cardinal. And so when I went to Japan, and that was most enjoyable thing. For the first time, I did bird watching in Japan, and I saw one after the other the familiar name Mejiro, of course, everywhere, and the ikaru, which is big beaks, and what do you call that? I don't know the colors. I think grosbeak, probably grosbeak, and other aobato, which is the green body pigeon in the mountain. All these things. The other one is oshidori, which is the ducks, painted ducks, oriental ducks, which is beautiful color, and the wings are kind of flipped, and it's very colorful, and I saw a bunch of them in my hometown, the resort area, a little bit to the mountain, and like hundreds of them, the flying, and I saw that, but they're kind of shy, and so like a wood duck here, but a little bit smaller than wood duck, but a similar coloring of the wood duck here, and a similar behavior, I would say. But it was fantastic, and one after the other, the one that I know the name, but I never seen, and I start to see that. So my bird watching habit is becoming, tremendously, out of hand, and I started to collect the bird book. Of course, Birds of Japan. This is the English written bird book. Bird of Galapagos Island. I never been there, but good idea to to get to know the Galapagos Island birds, right? Okay. And then, okay, so this is a Japanese bird book. I used this bird book when I was in Japan, and this is our butterlook, a green pigeon, and what is the other one that I was talking about? Mejiro. Oh, here. Okay, so this is Mejiro here. Beautiful birds, anyway. And all these things, and I start to see the Japanese birds, and I love this. So this is kakesu, right? Yeah, kakesu. And well, anyway, so that's the Japanese birds book. Of course, one of my most favorite is this. This is Rose of the Paradise, the Bird of Paradise, right? This is a French book. I think when I went to France, I happened to find this bird book, beautifully illustrated, Birds of Paradise book. I have to buy this. Wow, and the Bird of Paradise became one of my favorites bird, because I also started to collect the bird stamps, and collecting all those bird stamps from major country like Britain and U.S. of course, and Japan, and among all these stamps, it came a bit cheaply made stamps from somewhere like some Middle Eastern country or something, and they picked this upside down birds, which is like very funny upside down, but the feather is spread out, and the face looks like a laughing face, and it turns out that the bluebird, great bluebird of paradise, and this particular bird does the display. Okay, mostly the bird of paradise do the display with opening all the feathers and stuff. So hopefully I can find that birds. By the way, Bird of Paradise, very good documentary at David Attenborough's Nature type of TV series coming from Britain, and he goes to the Bird of Paradise area of New Guinea, and find this lots of interesting coding behavior of the. Okay, just hold on a second. I have to find the Bird of Paradise. Okay, so I found the book. The Bird of Paradise is this, and when he goes into courtship, he goes upside down and spread the wing, and just like this, and his tail thing, this thing, turn around like this. I saw these stamps, little stamps of this cheaply made stamps, and I was fascinated from the stamps. So from that time on, I like to go to New Guinea to see this bird. But of course, I never made it there. I never made any other country except Japan and Europe for some extent. And so, Costa Rica is one of the great spots for the bird watching. This particular bird book was obtained by my friend, close friend at that time, went to Costa Rica for fun, right? And he knew that I am a bird watcher, so he brought this, very nice, kind person, bought for me. Thank you very much. And of course, birds of Britain and Europe. Birds of Britain and Europe. Birds of South Africa. Birds of New Zealand. Okay, in New Zealand, I saw when I was a student. I think I saw the girl from New Zealand, and she was a bird watcher then, and also she gave me a book she was carrying, and to give it to someone who is a similar interest or something. So she gave it to me, and I still have that book. And okay, birds of Indian continent, subcontinent, Mexican birds, birds of New Guinea again. Right, this is my dream place. Birds of East Africa, West Africa. Okay, there's of course, the geographically tremendously different, like East United States and Western United States are different. So there's a different bird book I bought. Even the Birder's Guide to France, Birds of Britain, Europe, Birds of Japan, Birds of New Guinea again. Too much. Obsessed with the New Guinean bird of paradise, of course. Bird of South Africa again. Birds of Southeast Asia. Hawaiian and tropical Pacific birds. Birds of Venezuela. Birds of Australia. Okay. Well, so these birds were tremendous amount of bird book. I'm crazy. Do you think? I don't know. I'm crazy, but my dream is that going around the world to see the different birds. Oh, by the way, so if you are interested, if you have an interest in birding, if you take binoculars with like a guidebook, birds of North America, and I carry this, and whenever you see, and you don't see without this, and without any interest in birds, you don't see anything much. But when you go, next time you go out for the park or something, you carry this, and you a little bit study about the birds that your neighborhood, and then you see them. And it's so fascinating. I used to see the documentary, right? The TV. You see the beautiful birds, and that exists around you. And when you see this, it's like you are seeing the documentary on TV. Beautiful birds you can see. So that's how I became passionate bird watcher. And so, but besides U.S., in the U.S., I think Eastern, the Western, and I saw mostly easy to identify birds, like a colorful birds and distinct pattern birds, and I looked for it, and I saw most of the stuff. So as soon as you saw it, guess what? You are not interested in seeing this particular species again. So you look for different species, right? So after a while, I saw, most of the U.S. birds. So I kind of stopped bird watching here. I should be doing it, but not as passionately as I used to be. So now I like to go to New Guinea. I like to go back to Japan again to see the bird watching there. I like to go to Europe, of course, and I like to see like Africa, in Australia. Oh, Australia, and New Zealand, yeah, and all the Galapagos. That's like a bucket list place, but I never had a dream come true, bucket list. And so, but anyway, I'm satisfied with studying all these birds. For a short period of time, I became so enthused, and I couldn't get rid of these books. I bought all these books, and I started to also collect the stamps, right? And when you collect stamps, it's like a bird watching because there's a lot of different bird stamps all over the world. Each country has a different bird stamps. So if you have any interest in stamp collecting, I think mostly good way to do a stamp collecting is to focus on some topics, right? If you focus on something to do with the plants, or something to do with the birds, for example, and something to do with animals and so. So I was interested in bird stamps. So I started to collect those things, and it's kind of funny, but it's so enthrallingly interesting to do that because each country has its own birds, right? They're proud of their own nature and they're proud of their own bird species in their own country. So they produce this beautiful bird stamps. And so, I started to collect, and then that's okay. One of the reasons that I became interested in this bird book is that I had to identify this particular stamps, the birds depicted in the stamps, right? And I like to know more about it. That's why I ended up with all kinds of different part of the world bird books so that I can do a bird watching. That was for a while. It's tremendously fun hobbies of mine. But now this year, my son told me, "Well, hey Dad, you still have that bird stamps collection?" "Oh yeah, I do." And then he said, "Well, I like to sell it." Wow, that's my treasure. But by the time I get this old and I kind of jaded, bird watching a little bit. Oh, okay. So if you have a means to do that, go ahead and then sell them. So I kind of gave it to him, all my bird stamps collection. And so he advertised, and he found this, collector, but he tried to sell more higher prices, and he couldn't sell. Okay, that's another story. But anyway, so I think the anything that you get interest, I think bird watching could be your hobby. I think I strongly recommend, because when you go out, if you have just binoculars and a bird book, your world become tremendously enhanced pleasure. And this is same thing as like wildflowers, for example, and trees, for example. If you get to know those species names and the culture of this particular species, associated the culture, associated the biology or something like. If you get to know that, the world is almost like 1,000 times more enjoyable. And so I would say I strongly recommend you become a bird watcher and try to do just neighborhood, go to the park and start to identify some of the species you see through the binoculars, and you are amazed how enjoyable that is. And if you become more enthused, you also do the bird watching photography. That's pretty much more, tremendously crazy people to do that even today. And the video shooting of the beautiful birds, but you can do that, and that's beyond my threshold of my interest. I think I don't go there that far because that's involved tremendous energy and tremendous money to do that, and I don't have that means. So I stopped, and when I stopped doing that bird watching, that's okay. It's just bird watching, right? It's just okay. But the love of the birds, your birds is related to the dinosaur, for example. Many kids like dinosaur, right? You think about that. if you see the birds, oh yeah, that's a dinosaur descendant, and then all of a sudden your interest is also enhanced. So but overall, bird watching is very interesting. And if you go to YouTube, for example, gosh, you can do the bird watching on YouTube. Many people, and that's this beautiful bird show. I think what they do is they put this camera in one spot, and they put the seed in front of it, and just leave it for long time, for like a 1 day period of time, or even a few hours. Then you can see the birds once in a while comes in there and steal the food and then fly away. But if you edit those, you got a constant visitor coming into the particular spot, and each time you different species, and you never think of you can identify or you can see those birds in nature, but it comes and then just So YouTube is a very good place to do bird watching, and the stamps, of course, it's a very good way to do stamp collection and bird watching. And David Attenborough's Lots of Nature TV program is a very good way to do bird watching. And books, I showed you the books, kind of heavy. And for example, this book, I casually showed you before, but it has a word, this is a Macmillan Illustrated Encyclopedia of Birds, Visual Food in the World of Birds. So this is a birds in the world, and they picked the most colorful birds or interesting birds in the world. Those are different colorful birds, and a beautiful illustration. I love this book, and oh gosh, birds are art, and it's beautiful. And when I used to work in this place where like a apartment housing, but it's for rich people, right? And this particular apartment complex for rich people has a nice hallway, and the whole hallway they have a different art, hung, right? And mostly because there's a huge apartments, there's a lot of hallway, and some of them are fine arts, like artistic fine arts, beautiful and expensive fine arts, but some of them are birds, illustrated birds, just like this, this type of bird. Audubon himself wrote, drew a lot of beautiful pictures, and so I was walking around this apartment complex, and almost feel like I'm doing a bird watching, because I can identify some of the world birds from Europe and so forth, and so I think that's my nutshell today. I am crazy, you can realize got so much frivolous hobby, but it's fun. Okay, bye.